Coke Wave is one of the most loved mixtape series the hip-hop world has ever seen, and behind it is none other than Max B and French Montana. I gotta say, French Montana has a heart of gold and a past full of thorns. You could spend all day hearing his story, and the tragedy still wouldn't end. From the gritty streets of the Bronx to losing friends to gun violence, so much has changed, but his resilience remains unbreakable. So today, I'm breaking down everything about Coke Boys and French Montana, and trust me, it'd be practically a crime to click away, because this is one of the most gripping stories in hip-hop. French Montana. Yeah, the name rings a bell today, but let's get one thing straight. The road to fame for this guy wasn't some smooth, glamorous cruise. Nope. French, born Kareem Karbouch, in the dusty streets of Casablanca, Morocco, didn't stroll into the spotlight with a silver mic. This story starts with an eye-popping culture shock. A teenager plops straight from North Africa into the chaotic, gritty streets of the Bronx. Imagine not speaking a word of English and suddenly trying to figure out the language, the slang, the street codes. Survival mode was on 24/7. It was sink or swim, and French was already wading through some deep waters, hustling for more than just a paycheck. He wasn't just another kid floating around, letting life happen to him. No sir, the French had a game plan. And how did he put that vision to work? With a stroke of absolute genius. While some kids were still trying to figure out how to get lunch money, French was out there making waves with his Cocaine City DVD series. He was out there documenting the streets, putting a camera to the raw, uncut reality of hip-hop culture, interviewing artists like it was his personal mission to be a Stephen A. Smith of the Bronx underground. People paid attention, and French Montana's face was one you couldn't forget. In 2003, when he was just 19 years old, at the time, the hustle came with heavy consequences. One night, while leaving a recording studio in the South Bronx, French Montana became the victim of a brutal shooting. A gunman approached him out of nowhere, and before French could react, a bullet grazed his head. Think about that, a bullet to the head. Most people wouldn't have survived something like that, but French did. He was rushed to the hospital, bleeding profusely, and doctors did what they could. Miraculously, French pulled through, and his recovery was nothing short of extraordinary. The experience wasn't just physically scarring, it was life-altering. He spent weeks in recovery, but instead of backing down, he became even more determined to make his mark on the world. French never publicly named the shooter, but the streets had their theories. And while he chose not to dwell on revenge, he did acknowledge that the incident left him more guarded and aware of the dangers around him. The near-death experience only fueled his ambition. Then there's the legend, Max B. Oh, where do we start with that? Their partnership was like magic in a mixtape blender. French and Max weren't just making music, they were architecting a whole vibe. The Coke Wave mixtapes hit differently. They combined Max B's smooth, infectious melodies with French's unfiltered, straight-from-the-hood delivery. It was like a perfect storm of beats and bars, and listeners couldn't get enough. But just when the duo was building serious momentum, life threw a punch that would have KO'd most people. Max B got slapped with a jaw-dropping 75-year prison sentence for murder and robbery charges. 75 years. Talk about a plot twist. French found himself mentorless in the middle of the fight for his life, but instead of folding, he doubled down. With the odds stacked against him, French took everything he'd absorbed from Max B and leveled up. That's when the Coke Boys era came to life. And it wasn't just about starting a record label, this was a brotherhood. French assembled a squad of street-savvy talents like Chinx Drugs, who became his go-to right-hand man. Charlie Rock, Cheese, Flip.
We bring to you, French Montana, Coke Boy.
This was more than music. It was a family, a crew that lived and breathed the streets, with loyalty running deep enough to drown in. When they dropped a mixtape, it wasn't something you played at your grandma's tea party. These tracks were grimy anthems, the raw sound of the struggle and the hustle to make it out. And the magic? It was in their sound. The Coke Boys mixtapes had a vibe you couldn't fake. Every beat, every verse told stories that mainstream radio wouldn't touch, and yet they became anthems. It wasn't just music, it was a survival guide, an unfiltered expression of everything they lived through. French wasn't trying to impress corporate execs, he was making music for the streets. And the streets crowned him a king. As the Coke Boys movement gained steam, French Montana's journey from an underground hustler to a certified superstar was proof that street cred could open doors even industry gatekeepers couldn't lock. But French Montana didn't just leave his squad in the dust once the fame came rolling in. No, he pulled his Coke Boys brothers up with him, turning their collective grind into a dynasty. From gritty mixtape circuits to major record deals, this wasn't just the American dream, it's the ultimate hustle story. French Montana didn't just survive, he flipped the script. And the Coke Boys legacy is a wild ride that's only just getting started. Keep your eyes peeled, because with French, you never know what's coming next. So, first up, let's address this soul-crushing heartbreak that shook the Coke Boys to the core, Chinx drugs. If you think you know tragedy,
boy, pussy, nigga, playing with the paper, boy. Run on the stash with the grip, boy.
Think again. Chinx was right on the cusp of exploding into mainstream hip-hop stardom. But on May 17, 2015, that dream ended in a hail of bullets. He was just 31 years old when he got gunned down in a drive-by shooting in Queens. And yeah, it was as brutal as it sounds. Chinx, real name Lionel Pickens, was leaving a nightclub at the ungodly hour of 4 a.m., cruising in his Porsche when another car pulled up and opened fire. It was hit multiple times and didn't make it despite a desperate rush to Jamaica Hospital. The hip-hop world was left reeling, but no one felt that gut punch harder than French Montana and the rest of the Coke Boys. The shockwaves from Chinx's death were seismic, and even though arrests were finally made in December 2017, it didn't change the fact that the crew had lost a brother. The mystery, the pain, the what-ifs, they all lingered, because let's be honest, no amount of justice brings back a friend. But wait, the Coke Boys story doesn't end with heartbreak alone. Not at all. Instead, controversy seemed to have them on speed dial. Case in point, Lil Poopy, the kid rapper who was literally living the Coke Boys lifestyle before he hit double digits.
Red bone, Maserati, two-tone.
This wasn't some innocent child star stuff. Poopy was dropping bars, slapping women's behinds in music videos, and bragging about his lavish life like he had a 401k and a yacht. In 2013, it all hit the fan when child welfare authorities got involved after seeing videos of this pint-sized rapper acting way older than he had any business acting. The Massachusetts Department of Children and Families came knocking on his dad Luis Rivera's door, sparking an investigation that had everyone clutching their pearls. Luis, of course, defended his son's foray into hip-hop stardom, claiming it was all just an act. Sure, the case didn't result in serious consequences, but it definitely made people wonder about the Coke Boys' decision-making skills. And if you thought the legal drama stopped there, think again. Various Coke Boys affiliates had their own share of run-ins with the law. We're talking arrests, assault charges, weapons possession, you name it, they probably faced it. It was like the universe was trying to remind them that the streets didn't exactly hand out free passes. The headlines wrote themselves. For every hit song, there was a mugshot ready to go viral. It was a weird paradox. The more trouble they got into, the more street cred they seemed to earn. French Montana, the mastermind trying to balance all this madness, played it smart. He leaned into his mainstream success to shield the Coke Boys from total PR disaster. But you can't ignore that the legal drama left its mark. Now, let's flip the script to French Montana's solo ascent. By 2011, he was signing with Bad Boy Records, making all the right moves to take his career into the stratosphere. His debut album, Excuse My French, was a heavy hitter, debuting at number 4 on the Billboard 200 in 2013, with features from music royalty like Rick Ross, Drake, and Diddy. But don't get it twisted. Even as French was basking in the glow of mainstream fame, the spirit of the Coke Wave and Coke Boys was all over his music. Songs like Ain't Worried About Nothing screamed that raw, unfiltered Coke Boys energy, and French wasn't about to compromise that vibe. Tracks like Pop That were straight up anthems, dripping with the hard partying bravado of his crew. And then came Unforgettable in 2017, a monster hit that went 9 times platinum, a song that dominated charts like a dictator, and yet, behind the catchy hook,
Like I'm fresh out, if they want the drama, got the...
you could still sense French's journey from a hustler in the Bronx to a global star. The real challenge for French was balancing his solo fame with loyalty to his Coke Boys family. The industry is a snake pit of betrayal, but French made it a point to stay loyal, always giving props to his crew and making sure they ate too. His loyalty wasn't just talk, it was the backbone of his career. As he racked up sold-out shows and Billboard hits, French kept the Coke Wave and Coke Boys legacy alive, never letting his success overshadow the grind and hustle that got him there. And we can't wrap this up without giving Chinx drugs the tribute he deserves. Chinx wasn't some background player. He was a lyrical beast who was destined for greatness. His tracks like Feelings had a smooth, confident flow that made you think, this guy's the future. When Chinx got murdered, it didn't just leave French Montana devastated. It felt like a piece of the Coke Boy's soul was ripped away. The crew did what they could to keep his spirit alive, dropping Welcome to JFK, his debut album, after he passed.
Caught slipping and he froze up. Never pimps down, hoes up.
It was a masterpiece full of dreams and struggles, but also a haunting reminder of what could have been. The grief, the unanswered questions, and the weight of that loss still hang heavy over the Coke Boys. It's a legacy built on both triumph and tragedy. And the story isn't just about success. It's about surviving when the world gives you every reason to break.